discussion. So,
Yes, I should take my mask
Awesome.
off.
Can everybody hear that? Is that clear? Yeah? Fantastic. Again, thank you ever so much, everyone. We're going to do something a bit different. We've not done this before at any of our user groups. So it's going to be a bit more of an interesting session rather than the kind of the normal kind of presentation style. We're going to have a bit of a nice informal kind of roundtable session. We're going to ask some questions. Some difficult answers might come back even towards us at AppsAnywhere. We don't know the answers yet. So we'd also, I think we're all quite happy as well to keep it interactive. So if anybody does have any questions as we go, if it's on topic, let's ask the question there and then. If the question leads to an answer that's 20 minutes long, we might park it and answer it later on, but let's do our best just to keep this as informal as possible. What we can do to start, I think, if we can basically go around the table, everybody introduces themselves, which institution they work for, and maybe a little bit of background about that institution as well. That'd be good. Steve, can we start with you?
This is the version we've done this, so we have an opportunity to wreck it.
You can totally do that. Yeah. I've not done this before. I'm ad-libbing.
I'm Stephen Hunt. I'm the Senior Director of IT and Facilities for the Faculty of Engineering at Queen's University in Kingston. So I represent just one faculty. The AppsAnywhere isn't used in a central basis yet. We're talking to the Faculty of Education and bringing them on board. But we're primarily focused on engineering education, which has its challenges in terms of the kind of software that's being run. So.
Okay. I'm John Levy, and I'm the CIO at Niagara College. I don't know what to say about Niagara College other than it was one of the original colleges when they all got formed back in the 60s, and we still have an undefeated football team. Because we don't have one at that point in time, so at least that's what they put on the t-shirt or the sweatshirts. Besides that, we kind of started to run AppsAnywhere right from the start when we were hearing about it from, actually George Brown College was really pushing it, and the team saw it and they were really pressuring to bring it in and looking at what it might be able to do. So we've been kind of through the ringer in a good way with the product and pushing it out, and everything they say about it that, and you saw on some of those comment cards, that says we wouldn't have survived without it. We would not have survived the pandemic without it being in place.
Cool, Oliver.
I'm Oliver Chan, a manager of Workgroup Technology Services at York University. I'm told that we are the third largest Canadian university. We have two campuses, one at Keele. The other one is a bilingual campus, Midtown. And we're building our third campus right in downtown Markham Cove, right? So that's coming next year. We are, I think, in our fifth journey year with AppsAnywhere. I mean, for me, I stopped counting after everything is going smooth and stuff like that. So for fifth year, everything's been wonderful. I think one of couple quotes here. I believe, for me personally, the engagement with AppsAnywhere is about partnership. For me, it has never been like a vendor-client relationship where they're all about making money and stuff like that. They're in there for the real stuff, for the real investment with students and making sure that applications work everywhere, anywhere you want to have it, right? So I think that's still a success story for all of us right now.
Jason?
Excellent. So my name is Jason Cousins, and I'm the manager of technical support and interactive technology at Seneca College. So the academic administrative workstation would fall under my portfolio, as well as the audiovisual. We have roughly 4 campuses, well, 5 if you count the Peterborough campus, so we have around 5 campuses. And our journey started probably in around 2015, 2016 with software tool back then, now AppsAnywhere. And I would say over the past years, we've made significant strides And because of the journey we take, because of the collaboration, because of the partnership we've built and relationships we've built with colleges such as yourself, we were able to hit the ground running. And when COVID happened, we were ready. We had everything in place, infrastructure, not only on the academic side, but on the administrative side. So students were able to start using software at home, and faculty were able to use it on their PC as well. So it's been a real success story for us.
We're just meeting.
Yes.
For the very first time on stage, live. Peter.
Yeah. So I'm Peter Gilbert. I'm the Chief Infrastructure Officer for Fanshawe College in London. So I look after IT and facilities in that role. I came to the college in 2013. Prior to that, I was working in the hospital system, where we relied really heavily on Citrix as a way to provide software and across a number of different devices, a number of locations. So when I came to the college, I was interested in how it was that we managed software, and found out that we were still doing a lot of work with individual machines, rolling out software from centralized locations, trying not to tax out the network. And I really thought, we got to do something. Citrix is probably no longer the answer, but what else could we try? So in about 2015, we started working with a different product, which I won't name, VMware. So we were working with VMware, very expensive, lots of challenges. We weren't making a lot of traction. And then at one of our OCC CIO meetings, so where all the 24 colleges come together, we had heard about Seneca and George Brown in particular were making great strides with using AppsAnywhere. And so we decided to pivot at that point. Thankfully, a lot of the money that we'd sunk into the VMware architecture could be reused in the AppsAnywhere architecture, and we were really starting to have some really good progress in terms of learning how this product worked and everything, and then along came the pandemic. And basically it saved our bacon, allowed us to maximize the number of students that wouldn't have to come to campus, because 2 years ago in the summer we were doing a lot of planning to say, what things can we do to make sure the fewest number of people have to come to campus? And the need to get at software, specialized software, was probably the number one thing that was dragging students onto campus. And being able to provide that software off campus was really helpful. At the same time, we have a large international population who typically is on our campus and would be given permission to study from their own country. So our whole paradigm of saying just walk down to the computer lab and access your software there no longer worked when our students were coming in from about 95 different countries. So again, AppsAnywhere played a huge role in allowing us to maximize our international student load, as well as minimize the amount of time that our domestic students had to come on campus, and really took us from, at one point we were looking at in 2020-21, that we were going to lose something like $26 million operational wise from the campus, and we ended up turning a profit. And I think AppsAnywhere was a good part of why we were able to do that, because we could maximize enrollments both domestically and international.
Awesome. No, thank you very much, everyone, on that. And just, I guess, on to the apps anyway. I know we've all kind of touched on it, and you guys really, you're kind of, I guess, early adopters even in the Canadian market. So you've all rolled it out extensively. You're all using it for BYOD? I presume after the pandemic there was no choice. Yeah. Do you all use the analytics engine at all? Yeah?
Yes.
What kind of data are you getting out of that, Jason?
So with analytics, it's actually quite powerful for us. So we're able to tell whether an application is actually being used. Because from time to time, you'll get a faculty that'll say, listen, I want to keep this application running on, or we call it My Apps portal. And they'll say, don't remove like AutoCAD 2020 or 2021 because it's being used. We can now tell whether that application is being used and be able to have that discussion with the dean or the chair and say, it's time for us to transition away from these older applications and focus on this. It gave us a visibility into how the applications are being used from an international perspective. So we can see students in India who are accessing the application, what graphical location is being accessed, the date and time they're being accessed. So it really opened our eyes and gave us a lot of insight. That's very powerful for us.
Anybody else using the app yet?
So in addition to those great benefits, we were fortunate that most of the costs for our AppsAnywhere environment are underwritten by the student tech fee. So the students pay a fee every term, and we will pitch to the student tech fee management group to say, we have certain software that we want to invest in. They want to see a return for that. And so without the analytics, the best we could do is say we have 100 packages. I think we're up to about 140 software packages now. But if they were to say, well, how often are they used? How many students are using them? Where are they using them from? We wouldn't have had that information. So the analytics engine provided that, and we've been able to go back and we get continued support from the student tech fee, which relieves the burden off our operating budget so we can invest in other areas for the students.
Just from an administrative point of view as well, does it help in identifying duplication of applications? Like you've got multiple versions and you don't really need them.
Absolutely. And I gave the example of AutoCAD. I think we have AutoCAD 2018 to AutoCAD 2022. And it's a nightmare trying to pull one application because you might have an instructor in continuing education that teaches AutoCAD that's tied to another piece of application. So now with this visibility, it makes it easier for us to sit at the table to say, let's plan and transition to 2022 or 2021 and remove some of these older applications.
Cool. Interesting. You call it My Apps.
Yes, we do.
Anybody else call it anything different?
During the last user day, actually, when I was attending at Seneca, we stole the name from them. I want to be honest here, like, you know. I said, hey, it works for Seneca, I should work for you.
We just use apps. Apps not kept it short. Yeah.
Is it Pitt State? Yeah, they've got their it's a gorilla called Gus, so it's Gus Apps. Yeah, so it's cool. I like it when people use other names because it's part of your service. It's not our service, it is your service. So it's cool.
Well, that way we can drop you like a hot potato.
Cut that. Okay. So you all kind of implemented before the pandemic, so you kind of, I guess, should have somebody who didn't. You were all prepared and ready when it actually hit. Let's take the pandemic out, we'll talk about it in a bit, but if you were to re-implement now, is there anything that you'd do any different? Go on.
I think because the university is pivoting to cloud-first strategy, I think for us, the investment would not have been us spinning up like an environment on premise.
Yeah.
We would have considered like, you know, a cloud presence first,
Yeah.
and making an argument for it, because now you can have business continuity on the cloud without, you know, we have had some, you know, our data center go dark, completely dark, right? So basically that presence on the cloud would allow the kind of business community 24/7.
And
One of the groups that we spent, and I'm going to call it an obscene amount of time on, was gaming, teaching gaming programming. And they have a group of unique ways of helping and doing their own BYOD as well as using our computers. And we had a tough time with versioning, and I don't think, because they would download part of it with AppsAnywhere and then patch their own versions on their own computers, and there were just incompatibilities, and not from AppsAnywhere, because if they downloaded everything, it would have worked just fine, but they always wanted, and even the faculty members were encouraging that. And I think if we would have spent more time on other groups, that might have been one of the pieces. If I was looking at this, I would have rolled it out a little bit differently to the rest of the environment and left them kind of on their own, just because they're kind of a unique little unicorns, and they want to live in their own little environment. It's just not compatible with all the little bits and pieces, so.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's best to walk before you can run.
And John, Tony mentioned there about you guys, most of you here, using it prior to the pandemic. You were telling me a story last night about, obviously, I think Niagara adopted it maybe the month of or month prior to the pandemic. Do you want to just tell that story about how you went, sort of almost foresaw what was going to happen and, reacted quickly, I suppose?
Well, I don't know why, but I just had a feeling. Several months before, we were watching what was happening, and I said, risk management wise, as a CIO, you want to be in front of whatever might happen, because you always want to look like a hero, and as it turns out we were, which is always interesting because it gives you a little bit more credibility for some of the crazy stuff that you do afterwards. However, we were working along, and we had a very small team that was kind of working away specifically apps at AppsAnywhere to put into our labs. And as we saw the pandemic emerging and basically we had those scenarios of what do we do if we close? Because we were seeing it go on in other countries at that point and coming across Europe, and we went, well, we got about 3 weeks is what they're telling us. Can we turn this? And quite honestly, I mean, Tyler's here and he was part of that team, and the number of hours that went into that was incredible to be able to wind it up. But the other really interesting piece of this was when we ran into trouble, we were able to reach out to AppsAnywhere and get support. And not just support, but if we couldn't package something, we could pay to have you guys package it. I think back in those days, that was a fairly new service. You weren't really doing it. We just went, we need help. And you pivoted and helped us out with that kind of work. We also did group workshops right before the pandemic, which I think were really good for everyone as a group because we could talk amongst ourselves. So it wasn't just counting on your help. We were able to kind of package together and work with one another for that. So that's how we kind of got everything going in such a short period of time. Plus, it was pretty stable in most cases, and we didn't really have any problems other than gaming.
Cool. Awesome. Jason, you guys have just kind of done a communication piece, haven't you? So
Yeah, I would say the marketing piece we did was phenomenal, and it was what really helped us to get the buy-in from not only the students, but the faculty and the executives. So we did a couple of things. The first thing we did was we reached out to our marketing department, and we wanted to have digital signage. So we started talking about My Apps application streaming, and we broadcasted all across our digital signage on the TVs throughout the hallways. Then we created an animation video that showcased My Apps and how it works. So we talk about you use the application anywhere, anytime, 365. It doesn't matter if you're home or if you're on campus, and that you're no longer tied to a specific campus. You can use it whether you want to go to a closer campus to you or you want to stay at home, you can use it. So we did that. In addition to that, we did a raffle. So we had students submit feedbacks, comments based on our pilots, and the feedbacks we actually did a raffle and gave like a $100 gift card to students. So we got a lot of positive feedback, and that was very important in that crucial stage when we were doing the pilot. And I think it's because the videos we did to buy-in, to get the students buy-in, the faculty buy-in, and the executive buy-in, and the amount of money we saved by going to software tour or AppsAnywhere was the reason why we're able to be this successful.
cool. And Oliver, you speak up on some. You talked about cloud first. Does everybody else have a kind of cloud first strategy, or yeah? So
Mostly.
So. Because I mean, that seems to me is something that's obvious, you know, has an impact on we keep talking about digital equity, having more and more services in the cloud allows more accessibility regardless, and that's from the back end side and the front end side. So, you know, I would expect that kind of thing.
I have yet, well, I shouldn't say I have yet to see. Almost every time we've looked at cloud, I have not seen the ROI yet. I keep expecting it to happen, but the numbers are still, especially if we try to roll out something that requires a GPU, again, engineering software.
Yeah.
GPU, heavy compute, you know, they're going to be sitting staring at it for hours with this thing running in the background. The dollars just go through the roof compared to just buying our own hardware. And so we haven't had a lot of success in terms of, we keep looking at it, we keep talking about it, but the dollars are a hard thing to overcome.
Yeah.
So that's, it's always a capital operating, and trying to find capital dollars is tightening, but if you drop it into your operating budget, while it does balloon your operating budget and it's a little hard to control, it's in your base budget then, and CIOs seem to like that an awful lot. And so, I mean, I think it's a way of shifting and playing the game with your finance people when they keep cutting back on your capital. And that's really truly what's going on when all is said and done. And it's being pushed upon you from outside vendors because they make money and so on and so forth. I'm not poo-pooing it in any way, but that really is the game back and forth when it comes to money. But you were bringing up equity and digital equity kind of from that standpoint. I think it's not your problem, but it's our problem overall, which is broadband. And we are rural in our region, and our students, about 60% of our students can't get 1 meg into their house, if you can believe that, still within the Niagara region. It's considered a rural area and no one wants to service it because it's so well spread out. If you're in a city, this is wonderful and nice and quick. I think some of the new products that are coming out to service the rural areas that are really going to help out and really help us, because we had kids having to drive in to use AppsAnywhere in our parking lot with Wi-Fi in front to submit their assignments. They download the software, they could run on it when they were at home, but if they wanted to submit anything, they just couldn't upload it. So they were doing a drive-by upload as they went by or parked in our parking lot. So I think we need to fix that in order to really be able to get the level of penetration. But having said that, we still were able to bring, students could still get the technology they needed, take it home, do what they had to do, and then be able to bring it back in when they had to submit. So they were finding interesting ways of working around that equity in a different way.
Do you think there's anything as IT leaders that you can do to help influence improving connectivity for students around your areas? Or is that just well beyond our remit?
Well, the argument I'd make on that is we've got Canary in Canada, which is our digital research or national digital research network funding that the government gives. And we have to have them not just putting in infrastructure and fiber for research services, but really see it as an educational requirement to force government to be able to back all the broadband that's out there. Sorry to jump in.
That's fine. I was going to say, early in the pandemic, I think there was an expectation that we would all solve the connectivity issue for our students. They would say, well, they try to use their phone, but that's not working so well, so can they go out and get a Rogers stick? And it's like, you realize that's kind of using the same infrastructure. That's not working on their phone too. But I think what we turned out to be would be more trusted advisors in terms of what options are out there. So as the Starlinks come on and things like that, I think we need to be on top of those things, but we won't necessarily provide it, but we're more, I guess, the people that you'd go to say, is there a solution for me out in this particular area? And maybe we can help that way. I know we solved some issues with people that had issues with just cell coverage in their basements because they had chosen to work out of their basements. And we found, repeater type things that would work across different carriers and so on. So sometimes we can fix it, sometimes we can just point them to Best Buy or somebody else who might be able to help them.
And I think from our perspective, we did support faculty and students by providing these internet sticks, especially for faculty and students that were in rural area. Now, it wasn't to everyone, but if you had a special case and you can prove that, hey, the internet in my area is really bad, we would help you and accommodate you by providing this internet stick so you can get internet connectivity. And there's a lot of little things we did on the back end as well that I'll share with you, I'm sure later when we talk about innovation that happens through pandemic.
Well, that leads nicely on to the next question. So, I think a few people have mentioned it today. You talked about it before, we talked about digital toolkits. And AppsAnywhere is one piece of that course, but it's not the only piece. We've just had a pandemic. It changed everything very, very quickly, and we all work in one of the most innovative sectors there is. Yeah, it'd be nice to share some of the stories about the innovations, the other things of the digital toolkit that helped you get through the pandemic and what you see going forward as well. So, any kind of things that you did that was
I guess I can start. So one of the things that we found was that there are students that might not have had the financial ability to be able to purchase a powerful workstation, or they're in a rural area or an area where the internet connection is not the most stable, or the bandwidth is not the strongest, or it's not the best bandwidth. So what we did was we were looking at LabStat as a solution to offer a remote desktop into our academic workstations, because we had upwards of 5,000 machines sitting in the labs not being utilized. And while we were doing the search, we found a university that was using an application that was open source, but it sort of died off around 5 years ago, and they weren't really developing it anymore. So we looked at the application, and we sort of took it inside, and we redeveloped it. We incorporated it with Active Directory, and we branded it as our virtual commons. So what that does is gives students the ability to use the Seneca computers that are on site. So they would remote into the computer, be able to utilize the Seneca's internet capability, the performance of the workstation, and launch their application. And on a daily basis, we can see anywhere from 400 to 600 students remotely that's logging into our Seneca computers in our labs. So that helped us tremendously. And we see students from India, China, all over the world utilizing these computers.
Awesome. Without maybe creating a lot of work for a lot of people at AppsAnywhere, did we put that into AppsAnywhere?
No.
Sorry, guys.
You can though, you should.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. That's exactly what the
Yeah.
strategy is about.
Yeah.
We want everything in AppsAnywhere. A service is only a service if it
Yeah.
completes.